Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DABCC TV. As always, I'm quite excited about this show. We have the guys from triCerat on today, and they're going to show us, not just show us their product, but they're going to show us how their product solves some of your key pain points, which I'm quite excited about. So with no further ado, I'm just going to jump right into this episode. So first and foremost, we have a couple guys from triCerat on the line with us. We have Steve Walman, and we have James Szivos with us. And so with no further ado, thanks guys so much for taking the time to be on the show. And real quick, can you introduce yourselves and who you are and what you do at triCerat? So first, Steve.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Doug. I want to tell you thanks for inviting us on. We're real excited to be on the show today. My name is Steve Walman, and I've worked for triCerat for about 9 years now. I started as a sales rep and worked my way through the organization, and currently vice president and responsible for sales, marketing, and customer service, which can be a big responsibility as we have about 8,000 customers now.
Wow. So. Okay. James?
Right. Thanks, Doug. I'm James Szivos. I'm a support and sales engineer at triCerat. I basically work with our customers every day to deploy and implement triCerat's Simplify suite and screwdrivers into their environment.
Well, great. So we have a vice president, and then we have the guy that really makes it happen, James, right?
Yeah,
right.
It's a really good opportunity to work with our customers, so it's good.
Well, perfect. Okay, so I'm like I said, I'm quite excited because I asked you guys, what are you going to show us? And you said, you know what, we're not just going to give you the normal demo. We're going to show you how we solve problems. And so, what are you going to show us? Let's dive directly into this.
Yeah, sure. Well, last month, Doug, we released Simplify Suite version 5, and this release now it fully supports Windows 2008, also 32-bit and 64-bit. But the exciting part for us in this release is it now supports Windows workstations.
Oh, very cool.
So this kind of takes us outside of just the terminal services or server-based computing industry and breaks us into the workstation market, both physical and virtual desktops, which takes our market from, I guess, a potential 80 million users to 650 million potential users. So we're excited about that growth. But, we've always appreciated your support for us, and especially your readers as well. And we wanted to do something different, like you mentioned. We didn't want to just do the daily demo that we do, because essentially that's really a highly customized thing. The benefit of the demo is we can talk to you about your specific environment, set up that in our demo lab, and then kind of walk through how our software would be able to benefit you specifically. So today what we're going to do is we're going to quickly overview our Simplify Management Console, and give you an idea of how our management works for some people that haven't seen it, and just to see really how easy it is to use. And then second, we'll demonstrate a few key areas that we think can help you save a lot of money on your desktop and application delivery. Like the painful areas, Doug, like profiles, desktop and application lockdown, printing, system performance, and we'll even get a chance to show you a sneak peek of one of our new releases called Simplified Visibility.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So a lot of guys, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, a lot of guys think of triCerat as the screwdriver people, right? The printer people. But you guys are much more than that. And what you're going to show us today is much more than that. So before we get too far ahead into the demos, can you just briefly tell us, who is triCerat? What are you guys doing today? What are the solutions? What problems do they solve? Bring us up to date on what's going on at triCerat today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know if everyone knows, but we are a private company. We're led by our CEO, John Byrne, who, Doug, you've known for a while.
Yeah.
And when he took the reins of the company in 2000, he really set his mind on growing our company organically from sales. So it's brought us to a point where we can really be directed by our customers. As I mentioned, we have over 8,000 customers in many different industries. And they really set the direction of where our products need to go. We started in server-based computing and the whole model of Simplify, but we've had this steady growth. But it's always been around simplifying the IT department. So the conflicts between user functionality and then an absolute nightmare for the IT department, and really just focusing on the balance. So what are those challenged areas? Kind of what I just mentioned. Locking down and controlling the user desktop, controlling what apps they can run, user profiles, so logins are fast. Also, they don't become corrupt that often, so users can have a nice, consistent environment, keeping performance good, in relationship to how the apps use the CPU, and as well as the visibility into the environment to make sure everything works, and of course printing.
Well, very good, very good. Okay, so enough about all that. Let's dive into this. Sound good, guys?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so what are we going to do
all right,
first?
Sounds good. Yeah, to get started, the first thing James is going to demonstrate is our Simplified Management Console. Now, this console is going to look different at first than things that you might be used to, but you'll probably pick it up pretty quickly. Essentially, it works side by side, or in many cases as a replacement for a lot of the manual scripting, group policy work that a sysadmin might do. So, James, show them what we got here.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. And essentially what you're looking at is the Simplify console, the management console for the Simplify suite, including all the products that come with the suite. This is basically the front-end configuration for the suite. The back end is a SQL database. You can install this Simplify console on as many workstations or servers as you want to remotely administrate that database.
Very cool. So, James, just so I understand the architecture, the console can go anywhere, and the back end is just a SQL database. Are there any other requirements for the suite? Any triCerat specific servers, anything of that nature?
No, it's just a SQL database. You need the console to manage it, and then the endpoints for the services, the products itself.
Very cool, very cool. So very simple.
And now this console, like what Steve said, it doesn't look like many consoles that you've encountered before, but it's very simple to navigate and use. It's broken up in 3 panes: owners, assignments, and objects. Owners are anything that we're going to assign these triCerat settings to. It actually integrates with Active Directory and LDAP, so you're going to be able to see your OUs, the entire AD structure, and the same hierarchy that you've already defined. You'll be able to see the users, the groups, and the computers and make assignments directly to them. You can also make assignments to remote computer names and IP address ranges. The objects pane over here is used to define these settings. So if you want to create a policy, you would just right-click, define it, modify it right over here. Once you've actually defined the policy, the setting, you need to assign it. And assigning it's very easy. You just select the owner you want to assign it to. So if I want to assign something to test, I select test, and I drag and drop it from the same location from objects to assignments, and you're done.
All right, good. Yeah, so that's essentially the console, and I don't know, you might be saying to yourself, well, I can accomplish a lot of this with scripting. This looks a little bit easier, but what common feedback we get is, I can do a lot of this with, GPOs and scripts. And
I was going to ask you that question, Steve, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Hey, I wasn't sure if you were going to.
No, I was going to wait a little bit, but...
Okay. So then that is true. I mean, essentially, this is a management console that makes it easier to do a lot of those things. But what really sets us apart is not necessarily just the console, but what we're going to show you now throughout the rest of the demo. Because what we're going to show you is some areas we go above and beyond what the current capabilities of your system has. So in this, we're not just manipulating registry settings. We're not just manipulating print drivers. We're not just manipulating icons on a desktop. We actually have created and have patents and some patents pending inventions that actually improve and go above and beyond what's included in the system. So the first thing that we're going to show you, and we're not going to go through all of our features today because I think that would be a little bit too much. It'd probably be here all day. But we just want to start with the first critical area is desktop and application security. So in that relationship, we're dealing with companies in every industry here. But we find like our banking customers, banking and finance, education, government, highly regulated industries. And what James is going to show is how our simplified desktop and lockdown go together to extend what software restriction policies can do, and give you an example of that.
Oh, very cool. So James, show it off.
Yeah, sure. And before I jump into how triCerat handles desktop and lockdown control, I'm going to show you basically how the Windows approach is done. Basically, using Windows, there are some features that you can turn on through group policies to restrict applications from running. Though there are some inherent flaws using those group policies. Your users might know that free cell, a game might be locked down, but if they're savvy enough, they'll know that they'll be able to copy that executable, rename it to something that it is already trusted, like explorer.exe, and then run that executable. Of course, you can also block down EXEs based upon the hash information, the executable itself, but in order to do that, you need the executable on hand to create that policy, that restriction. So you can't take proactive steps to block down things that aren't already on your system.
You bet. So, for example, somebody could download an application, any application, and obviously IT does not want that to happen. So with your solution, it'll stop that. But within the general GPO Microsoft way, they can still get around the restrictions that Microsoft give you, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So with Simplified Desktop and Lockdown, we take a different approach. Rather than having your system open and allowing you to secure it from there, we actually secure the desktop and the application control right off the bat, and then you actually allow the exceptions to allow things to run. So first off, this is a Simplified Desktop and Lockdown session. With Simplified Desktop, we give you the triShell, which is a Windows shell alternative, so you don't have to use Explorer.exe. It's very locked down right off the bat. If I right-click on the taskbar, nothing loads. So it prevents the user from accessing things that you don't want them to. It's very much easier to configure than using group policies to configure the shell. Now, using that same example, if I run FreeCell, instead of getting the group policy message, this is Simplified Lockdown preventing you from running this. Now, once again, the user might be savvy enough to move this executable, and when they move this executable, Lockdown's still going to prevent you from running it. Furthermore, if they were to rename it to iExplorer for Internet Explorer.exe, try to run it, it's going to deny you from running this. And the reason why that is because with Simplified Lockdown, you have to explicitly define executables to run. So if the executable that you've defined as an admin is not the same executable the user is running, it's not going to run. It's going to secure your environment.
Is there a way to sort of open that up? Let's say you want to give the end user some flexibility, but not, total flexibility. Is there like a learner's mode or anything of that nature?
Yeah, Lockdown is very flexible. You could set it back first to take the approach with group policies where you're allowing everything to run, but you're blocking down certain EXEs. And the other thing that we have is a learn mode, kind of like what you said, where it'll allow everything to run, and as the user runs these things, it'll learn the information, save it in the database so that the administrator can interact with that information, maybe allow it for the user to run in the future, and set their lockdown mode back to a trusted mode, which will secure the environment.
Perfect. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. I imagine that the administrators are informed when something happens so that in return they can say, oh, yeah, this is something I definitely want open, or, oh, my Lord, this is something we definitely want closed.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So, for example, I can show denied apps, and I can see all the applications my users are trying to run, when they're trying to run them, the server it's on. So all this information is visible for the administrator to manage.
Very cool. Okay, so what's next?
Yeah, and keep in mind also, what most of our customers do is the different segments of users. Some users, they want it to behave this way. Some users, they want it to behave that way. Some groups this way, some groups that way. That's what that console brings, is that flexibility.
Perfect. So it's very granular down to almost any level, correct?
Yeah, I mean, most people want to simplify and just say, hey, I want to treat everyone as similar as I can, and then make the exceptions. And it supports whatever level, and everyone's different. So
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So the next thing we want to say. All right. Well, so everyone has to deal with the user profiles in one fashion or another. So user profile problems is the next topic. The desktop and lockdown kind of relate because you do a lot of desktop settings and application settings are in that. So that kind of relieves some of the pressure off of the profiles, but there's still a lot of challenges to be dealt with to get the quality of user experience balance back with the nightmare for the sysadmins that we talked about. So there's a lot of options out there, open source solutions, tools that are included in your OS. The challenge that most people have that we see is making a change or implementing the solution. So in the test it worked great, but actually how do I get from point A to point B? I have corrupt profiles now. My users like their settings, but the corruption is just costing us too much money. Or the converse, which is, we don't really maintain our profiles. We just use a mandatory, but our users are complaining because they want to put their child's photo on their desktop, as an example. So how can we get from point A to point B? What we've created is something that can literally make that transition in minutes or even overnight, depending on how large your environment is. James, show them what we have here for the profile migration.
Sure. And before I jump into simplified profiles, I'm just going to show you our approach with profiles, how we handle this. Basically, we have a hybrid solution. This is an example of a user profile here. My profile is about 340 megabytes. We take a two-step approach with profiles. We isolate the user registry settings, the ntuser.dat, from the remaining folders, the user shell folders that we have for the profile. And with regards to the registry settings, what we essentially do is set up a series of save and restore operations for the registry. So you define as an admin what registry values, what applications you want these settings to retain for the user from session to session. What happens is when they log in to the workstation or the server that they select, it doesn't matter what profile loads because we're going to override those settings with their previous session settings for the application settings. So that makes it very lightweight. Our overall goal is to make the profile as lightweight as possible so that it loads quickly, it logs off very quickly, and you get less corruption as a result. So once you've defined these registry portions, the next thing you need to do is actually set up folder redirections for these user shell folders. So built into our software, you can actually redirect these folders. So what happens is when the user logs in, these folders are read over the network. So instead of copying down my entire 340 megabytes of user profile information, instead, only the data that I access throughout the entirety of the session is copied over to the server. It's data on demand. So if I'm only using 20 megabytes of profile information, that's all that's copied down to the server instead of the 340 megabytes. It makes it very lightweight and easy to use. Now, with regards to what Steve was saying, we have the Simplified Migration utility, and you can use this to migrate the profiles. Essentially, what we're going to do through this example is we're going to move the data from the roaming profile over to the SQL database for the save restore operations that I was mentioning earlier. So all you have to do is run this migration once. It migrates your profiles, and you're ready to implement our solution. So once that data has been moved over to the simplified database, you can actually view it through this triReg tool. I can see all my user settings directly through here. And even furthermore, I can remotely change the values. If I want to blow away registry keys, that's something that I can do too. So you're not hindered by the limitations in the Windows profile. You don't have to load up, regedit, open the profile, find the corrupted value, and delete it. You can just access this triReg tool and manually delete that value. And that way, when the user logs in next time, they have new value settings for that application. They're able to reestablish those settings and work from then on out.
Very cool. Now, you had mentioned you're only, with the profiles, you're only using or sending over to the desktop what is really needed. And the stuff, if they don't use it within that session, it still stays on the file server or what have you. What happens in an offline environment? Steve, you had mentioned at the beginning of this video podcast that you guys are now doing this for not just server-based computing, desktop virtualization, but also for workstations. So how do you deal with offline usage?
Well, with regards to offline usage, generally with Simplify Suite, you're going to be in a network where you're going to have access to that SQL database. So those settings are going to pick up from the database, and you're going to have all those settings defined. But also at the same time, much like with Windows profiles, if you were to have a laptop, for example, and you took that machine home, we could set that up so that when the user logs in, if the database connection can't be established, then we can either load the Explorer shell without our software loaded, or we could actually use some cache settings, which are going to be implemented in the next release of Simplify Suite.
Yeah, so essentially what James is saying is that's a current limitation. You need connection to the database with our software. So if you have it on a laptop and someone's going to take that laptop away, we're not optimized really for that yet. So that's a feature you'll see coming soon with our software.
Yeah, it should be available in the next major release to retain cache settings from previous sessions, so you're not losing anything as you roam your laptop or move the workstation out of the domain.
Okay, so what's next?
Yeah, it's good. Well, you knew printing was going to show up.
Oh, so. Sweet. We're going to talk about printing now?
Yeah. And, it can be a pain, and we don't have to go into that. But, I think it's probably the most underrated complexity of any computing environment. But from printer driver management to spooler stability, assigning printers to users, remote printing challenges with fonts and bandwidth issues. If anyone hasn't seen a demo of our screwdrivers product, feel free. We can schedule that at any time. It takes about 15, 20 minutes to take a look at, and James or one of his guys can help. But we're not going to give you that entire spiel today, but we wanted just to show you one example of how our printer driver virtualization technology or universal printer driver or whatnot compares with and goes above and beyond what the Citrix UPD, I think, is the demo James is going to show today. So now, the Citrix UPD works for many of our customers and many Citrix customers, but we just want to show you an example of when you might want to look outside of the included print solution. And this is the same for native terminal server with their Easy Print, or if you're using what's included with VMware. This is one of those areas that you can save your company a ton of money and time if you really see the details of what's going on in the printing environment. So, James, show them what we're going to do today.
Yeah, so what I'm going to be showing you is some functionalities of screwdrivers and the sample print job. First off, before I dive into the sample print job, I want to explain that screwdrivers it's very robust. It's what makes it great is that it's a universal print driver solution. You don't have to manage your drivers on your server anymore. You don't have to manage fonts on the print servers or the clients anymore, and you can support many more printers in the Windows environment. Now, with that said, I'm going to bring up my printers and faxes, and as you can see, I have two printers here. One's defined using screwdrivers, the other one's using the Citrix Universal Print Driver. Right off the bat, you can see the differences between the names of these printers. With Citrix, you're stuck with what they define for you. With screwdrivers, you can make this very customized. So instead of having the computer name, I have the username included instead. So that's very, very useful.
And where would you define that? In the admin console?
That is correct. You would define it in the administrative console.
Can the end users define it? Can they give it, my fancy printer on the corner of my desk name?
Well, what's going to happen is we're going to use the client-side printer name. So if you were to, name your printer on your client side, Doug Brown, when you connect to the server, it's going to be Doug Brown, then your username, and then the session number. Or, if the admin find it to have the computer name, it'll have the computer name instead.
Perfect. But if they've gone through and users have customized it the way they like it, you're not changing it for them.
That's correct.
Which is the key there.
They'll be able to recognize their printer very easily on the server.
Very cool.
So what I'm going to do is a sample print job using a PowerPoint presentation. And I'm just going to print this to the Citrix Universal Print Driver. And it's spooling right now. And I'll bring up the spooler for screwdrivers as well as the Citrix Universal Print Driver. And as you can see, these printed the same document, the triCerat file, 24 pages. Ours spooled to 11.5 megabytes. And as you can see, the Citrix one spooled to 85 megabytes, actually.
Why the difference?
Well, the reason why this is different is because we actually defined our own format during the spool process of screwdriver printing. Instead of using the EMF format, which Microsoft created and Citrix uses, and even FinPrint, we use a proprietary format called tri-meta file format, TMF. And it allows us to actually compress these files, make them very lightweight, and support many more printers and features. So this is what it's spooled to, but one thing I want to keep in mind is that after it spools, it even gets compressed further using the WinZip algorithms. So most likely this print job, when it got sent down to the clients, only maybe 2 megabytes or 3 megabytes.
Wow.
And sending that print job is significantly less than an 85 megabyte print job that's not going to be compressed. It's going to use less bandwidth. It's going to speed up the print process, and it's going to look exactly the same.
Very cool.
Yeah, and sometimes bandwidth isn't always a concern, but like speed of printing is typically a concern. So when our TMF format starts spooling, it streams print data down to the printer instantly. So it doesn't have to wait even for one page to create. It just instantly starts printing.
You bet. And in remote environments where you have the server sitting on the data center and you got the end user sitting on some remote site, there can be some, considerable savings by compressing all that information, I imagine.
Definitely. And one thing that people are starting to realize is that with VDI networks and infrastructures, printer management becomes even more difficult than in terminal server environments because there's many more clients to support and many more machines that you're going to have to handle.
Yep, you bet, and all that's going to travel across the WANs and the LANs, where maybe when it's connected directly to the local machine, it's not, right? So big savings there. That's very important. Okay, so anything else with printing, or what's next?
No. I think we're done with printing there. But last but not least, we wanted to give you a sneak preview of our Simplified Visibility tool.
Very cool.
Almost every IT manager I talk to is interested in some way or another, the performance of their system and obviously the transparency. Getting visibility into actually what is going on in their environment, how the apps are being used, what the users are actually doing. So they can either react faster when a problem happens or be better prepared to prevent something in the system from even happening. Get the application to the user get maximum availability to all their apps. So we have a product called Simplified Stability, and we'll show you how these two work together. And Simplified Stability uses our patented technology that ensure the applications use the CPU as efficiently as possible, maintaining that system performance. So we use this technology to report to Simplified Visibility as well as other information to give you a real simple, down and dirty view of what is happening in your environment. Very easy to set up. And James is going to be a quick preview of that today in action.
So as Steve said, included with the Simplify suite, you have Simplify Stability. That resource management service is actually going to guarantee that users have equal amount of usage to the CPU. It helps prevent processes from consuming too much CPU usage. But in addition to that, future releases are going to have the Simplified Visibility tool that actually gives you visibility into your environment, your entire farm. And essentially what Simplified Visibility is a resource management service. It collects data about the servers that it's installed on or the workstations installed on, and it saves those Windows metrics of CPU and memory usage and other statistics to the database, the visibility database. And then from there, you can run reports against that information. You can actually open up the Simplified Visibility Monitor tool that I have open, or even use a web monitor tool that we have. So with this Visibility Monitor tool, what I have here is a knock view of the entire farm. I can see all my servers here. Three of these servers are offline, but JF Box is online. It's healthy. This load percent represents how much stress it's taking, CPU usage, memory usage. So there's a lot of useful information in here. But really the great stuff about this is that I can go down to a specific server and I can view this information. What makes this unique is that you can view data from prior information. Because this data is pulled from the database, unlike Task Manager, when you open this up and only starts collecting information from when you open this, Simplified Visibility has prior history of your server's history here. I have this memory view, and some of the other features that you have is you can actually view the sessions open. You can see how much CPU usage each session is using, the status of that session, as well as all this information related to the session. So, for example, I can see that Steve Walman is actually on the server right now, and he's using a lot of CPU usage. So, some of the unique things that you can do is you can send messages, much like in Task Manager. But, Steve, what are you doing here, actually?
What do you mean?
Yeah, you should be able to know, right?
Yeah, exactly. I can see you got Calculator open, and you're using a lot of CPU usage. And actually, what I can do from here is I can kill this executable. And that'll kill it from a session, and that'll actually prevent it from having issues anymore. So when you do have an issue, you can view that data through here. You can manage everything from one centralized location. This can be deployed across your entire farm, not just terminal and Citrix servers, but your email servers, your file servers, so that you can actually track this information. And as you can see, when Steve had that Calculator application open, it caused the server CPU usage to spike, and since then it's gone down.
Very cool. Now, when you close that, can you give that user the ability to say, wait 5 minutes, or would that happen by just sending them a message?
Well, yeah, I would have to send them a message. Killing the application kills the process directly.
Makes sense.
So, from here you could send a message to the user. Steve's still online, so all I have to do is right-click here.
Perfect. Yeah.
And just like a Windows message, it's going to send it to a session.
Perfect. And I also imagine all these, I can be sitting back at my desk working on my normal work and then be alerted that, heck, there's something terrible going on and the Steve character is running this calculator at 99% utilization and everything else is being killed. And then I can go take action, right?
Exactly. So
Perfect.
What really makes this a great product is that you have the flexibility, like what I said earlier, to run the reports that you want. So you can take all the data, the useful information that you want to collect and report against, and every single morning come in and have an email sent to yourself, or, depending on how you set up these reports, you have all the useful information of your farm or even the workstations. You can track that information and proactively respond towards, the growth of the server, how much CPU usage is being used, so you can allocate more resources in the future for your farms as they grow.
Okay, James, that sounds great. I have to ask the question, this is the sneak peek, so when can we actually get evals or betas or things of that nature? If somebody wants to learn more about Simplified Visibility, what do they do?
We have a lot of information on our website currently, so you can just go there. There's places you can sign up for the beta program. That would probably be the best thing to do to start out with. We are doing live demos of it. I think we'll start letting the software out in the next few weeks.
Very cool, very cool. So if someone's out there is listening, definitely just contact the triCerat boys and girls, and they'll get you hooked up with any of the technologies, any of the products we've shown today.
Yeah, actually, that's something I wanted to talk about, Doug, which I forgot to mention in the beginning. If someone wants to evaluate our software, if you just mention that you saw this video cast, you can get 5 free licenses of our Simplified Suite for workstations. So you can either go to the link in the show notes or send an email to DABCC@triCerat.com and take us up on the offer.
Well, perfect. That sounds great. Thank you so much for that. That's definitely great, and it'll help a lot of people, especially in this tough economic times.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, so with no further ado, let's just go ahead and conclude this episode. But guys, I really appreciate taking the time to be with us, to show us this, your great technologies. And as always, I would like to give you guys the last word.
Sure, come visit us on the web, send us an email, get in touch with us, let us know some feedback on our software. That's how we grow, and I appreciate everyone who listened. Thanks.
Yeah. And
thank you, Doug.
Yeah, and if you want to see more information, like what Steve said, just get in contact with us. We'll be sure to set up a demo for you and cater this towards what you're trying to accomplish. There's many more features involved with this. If you want to download and test the software, all installs at triCerat.com actually come with a 30-day trial. You can acquire them from triCerat.com/downloads.
You bet. And then anyone out there, in case you have trouble spelling triCerat or anything of that nature, just go to the show notes where you are currently watching this video and or where you downloaded this video from, and we'll have all the links over to the evals and all that jazz. So, guys, again, I really appreciate your time, and I really enjoyed the demo and all that jazz. So I look forward to having you back on the show and dive even deeper into in the future. So thanks so much again.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for the opportunity.